Baseball team names. Some make perfect sense. Others sound like they were picked by throwing darts at a dictionary while blindfolded. But every single one has a story that'll blow your mind. The Yankees weren't always the Yankees. The Dodgers got their name from something that could kill you. And one team's name came from a newspaper writer who simply loved the color red. Buckle up, because we're about to discover how all MLB teams got their names. Orioles. Sounds fancy, right? When the St. Louis Browns packed their bags and bolted to Baltimore in 1954, they didn't overthink it. They grabbed Maryland's state bird and called it a day. Sometimes the simplest answer is the right one. The bright orange bird became the brand, and Baltimore never looked back. From military browns to Baltimore orange, that's how you rebrand with local pride. Next up, Boston's famous stockings, Red Sox. And yeah, the spelling looks weird, right? You'd think it should be Red Sox, but there's a reason for that. The Boston Americans were boring as watching paint dry until 1908. Then everything changed because of their uniforms. Those bright red stockings they wore caught everyone's attention, but newspaper editors were tired of long names. Red Stockings became Red Sox because socks was easier to fit in headlines than stockings. Lazy journalism gave us one of the most iconic names in sports, but that's nothing compared to Chicago's version, the White Sox. Chicago saw what Boston did and said, "Hold my beer." They started as the White Stockings, but just like their rivals, editors were done with long names. White Stockings became the White Sox. It wasn't about being cool, it was about fitting headlines in cramped columns. Two legendary franchises were named because 1900s editors were straight up lazy. That's baseball history for you, and honestly, it's kind of awesome. From lazy editors to a new era, meet Cleveland, the Cleveland Guardians. A name so new, it still smells like fresh paint, and stirred up more debate than any trade in team history. For over a century, they were the Indians. But in 2021, everything changed. The new name comes from those massive Guardian statues on Cleveland's Hope Memorial Bridge, towering figures that protect the city. Local pride meets modern times, and some fans are still processing the switch. But that's nothing compared to a name with real bite, Tigers. This name has actual bite, and the story's way cooler than you think. Most people assume it's random. They're dead wrong. It comes from the Detroit Light Guard, a military unit so fierce they were named the Tigers. When the baseball team needed a name that screamed strength and intimidation, they borrowed that reputation. From military units to baseball dynasties, that's a heritage you can't toy with. But wait, it's not weird compared to Houston's. Astros. See, this team shot for the stars, and the timing was perfect. They started as the Colt 45s in 1962, a generic gun name for a Texas team that made sense at the time. But in 1965, with NASA's space program exploding in Houston, they rebranded as the Astros. Space City needed a space team, and the cultural moment was too good to miss. From cowboys to astronauts in 3 years, but from rockets to royalty, here come the Royals. Royals. In America, that's either bold or completely backwards, depending on how you look at it. When Kansas City got their expansion team, they held a fan contest for the name. Royals won because of the American Royal, a massive livestock and horse show that's been a Kansas City tradition since the 1800s. And that place is Kansas City. Next, the City of Angels. Angels. Most of the time, the obvious choice is staring you right in the face. Los Angeles literally means the angels in Spanish. The city's been called the City of Angels since forever. When they founded the team in 1961, they went with the most obvious name possible, and nobody complained. No drama, no controversy, just pure simplicity that worked perfectly. When your city name already does the heavy lifting, why fight it? From Angels to Twins, let's head north. Twins. This name tells the story of an entire region in just 2 words. When the Washington Senators moved to Minnesota in 1961, they needed something that represented the Twin Cities, Minneapolis and St. Paul. Their logo even shows 2 players shaking hands across the Mississippi River. Unity in the name, unity in the logo, unity in the fan base. That's team chemistry from day one. But this next team got a nickname bigger than the original: Yankees. The most famous name in sports wasn't even their first choice, and that's low-key hilarious. They started as the New York Highlanders in 1903. Highlanders! Can you see Babe Ruth as a Highlander? By 1913, sports writers were already calling them Yankees informally because it rolled off the tongue better, so they made it official. You see, most times the nickname becomes bigger than the real name, and when you're the Yankees, it turns legendary. From pinstripes to elephants, on to Oakland. Athletics. This name survived more city changes than a military family on a constant deployment. It traces back to the 1860s Athletic Club of Philadelphia, where athletic meant sporting excellence. But here's the best part. Their elephant mascot came from an opponent's insult. The New York Giants manager called them white elephants, meaning useless and expensive. Instead of getting mad, they embraced it. From Philadelphia to Kansas City to Oakland, through insults and championships, that's pure resilience wrapped in green and gold. Next, Mariners. For a city surrounded by water on three sides, this was the only choice that made sense. When Seattle finally got their team in 1977, they held a fan contest for the name. Mariners won because Seattle's entire identity is built on the sea, fishing, shipping, naval tradition, and the Pacific Northwest maritime culture. Sometimes a name captures the soul of a city so perfectly, it feels inevitable. Seattle and the sea, forever connected through 9 innings. But we're not done. Time for some Florida sunshine. Rays. This team went through an identity crisis and came out stronger. They started as the Devil Rays in 1998, a stingray that could hurt you if you stepped wrong. In 2008, they dropped Devil and became just the Rays. Now it works double duty with the sea culture and Florida sunshine. It was a pinch hit change that knocked it out of the park. Sunshine beats the Devil every time. Next, Rangers. When you move to Texas, you'd better bring a name with attitude. The Washington Senators relocated to Arlington and needed a fresh identity for 1972. They picked Rangers to honor the legendary Texas law enforcement group, cowboys with badges whose reputation preceded them. Rangers meant business from day one, and that's exactly the swagger Texas demands. And finally, in the American League, our northern neighbors, Blue Jays. Canada's only team needed a name that could represent an entire country, and that pressure was massive. In 1976, they held a fan contest with over 30,000 entries from coast to coast. Blue Jays won because the bird is native to Canada and matched their parent company's blue branding perfectly. Smart business meets national pride in the most Canadian way possible. From day one, they weren't just Toronto's team, they were Canada's team, and the name had to carry that weight across 10 provinces. We're only halfway there, and we've already seen names born from lazy editors to guardian statues. Just wait till you hear the story behind the Marlins, Diamondbacks. This team picked the most dangerous thing in their desert and made it their entire identity. As one of MLB's newest teams in 1998, they needed a name that screamed Arizona without any confusion. The Western Diamondback Rattlesnake. Deadly, desert tough, and absolutely fearless when cornered. Perfect metaphor for a startup franchise trying to make noise in established territory. Diamondbacks is scary, but the name that weathered 3 cities? Braves. This name traveled more miles than a cross-country trucker and collected more controversy along the way. Started in Boston in 1912, moved to Milwaukee, then landed in Atlanta, and the name survived every single move. Originally meant Native American warrior, representing courage and fighting spirit that resonated with early 20th century fans. Legacy names carry weight, both proud and controversial, and this one keeps rolling through changing times. But look, there's nothing compared to the Cubs because they're not named after the animal directly. They're named after babies, and that's actually adorable. In the early 1900s, the team was loaded with young players, seriously young talent everywhere you looked. Fans started calling them Cubs, as in baby bears learning to play the game. The nickname stuck harder than a well-aimed bunt and became more cherished than any official name. From baby bears to firsts in baseball, Reds. This team has bragging rights that stretch back to the birth of professional baseball itself. They were the first professional baseball team ever, the Red Stockings in 1869, getting paid to play when everyone else was still amateur. Red Stockings got shortened to Reds over time, but that first ever history stayed embedded in every game. When you're literally first at something, you earn a right to keep it simple. Reds means baseball royalty, period. Rockies. Sometimes, the most obvious name is the most perfect name, and Colorado proved it. When they got their expansion team in 1993, they didn't overthink anything. The Rocky Mountains define Colorado's entire identity and create the most beautiful backdrop in baseball. Why fight geography when it's this spectacular? Playing baseball with those peaks behind home plate makes the name sell itself every single game. Dodgers. This name came from a daily survival skill that could literally save your life in Brooklyn. Back in the day, fans had to dodge trolley cars just to get to games without being flattened. Trolley-dodgers became the team nickname because navigating Brooklyn streets was genuinely dangerous. When they moved to LA in 1958, they kept the name even though nobody's dodging trolleys in sunny California. But next is a fish that fights back. Marlins. This team's been through more identity changes than someone in witness protection. Started as Florida Marlins in 1993, became Miami Marlins in 2012 to sharpen focus. The Marlin is fast, sleek, and fights hard when hooked, a perfect metaphor for a scrappy franchise that's never backed down from bigger market teams. But in the Brew City, beer rules all. Brewers. In Milwaukee, this wasn't really a choice, it was straight-up destiny. Milwaukee's been about beer since German immigrants made it America's brewing capital in the 1800s. When they needed a name, Brewers was so obvious, it practically hurt not to use it. The city's entire identity was already built around brewing excellence. Some names just write themselves when the cultural fit is this perfect. Milwaukee and beer, forever connected through hops and home runs. Mets. Short for Metropolitans, but that's not even the whole story behind this choice. When the Dodgers and Giants abandoned New York, the National League needed to heal a broken city's heart. Mets represented the entire metropolitan area and paid homage to the 19th century New York Metropolitans, a name built to bring a city back together after devastating losses. The Mets were Brooklyn and Manhattan's second chance at National League Baseball, and the name had to carry all that hope. But wait to see this name with no-nonsense approach. Phillies. The most straightforward name in sports history, and Philly wouldn't have it any other way. Phillies is literally just slang for people from Philadelphia. That's the entire origin story. They've rocked this name since 1883, making it one of the oldest in the MLB. No creativity needed when you're representing a city with this much natural attitude. Philly people are proud to be Phillies, and the simplicity matches the city's no-nonsense personality perfectly. But how about the name that grew from accusations to pride? Pirates. This team turned an accusation into their own identity, and that's pure Pittsburgh. In 1891, Pittsburgh got accused of pirating a player from another team in a shady fashion. Instead of denying it or getting defensive about the controversy, they said, you know what? We are pirates, and we're proud of it. The name stuck because Pittsburgh embraces that outlaw mentality. But the Pirates got there from accusations. But this next team came straight from California's founding. Padres. This name connects baseball to the founding of an entire city in the most beautiful way possible. Padres means father in Spanish, honoring the Spanish missionaries who founded San Diego back in the 1700s. It's one of the most historically significant names in sports, connecting mission work from centuries ago to modern baseball. That's serious historical respect wrapped in brown and gold. But wait a moment, and look, we're at number 3, and I bet you these are the worst names gotten from the weirdest ideals ever. And next, Giants. This name was born from pure emotion after a massive victory that changed everything. Back in New York, they were the boring Gothams until 1885. After a huge comeback win, their manager got so excited he called his players Giants, and the name exploded from that single moment of celebration. When you move across an entire continent, you better bring a name that means something special. Giants traveled perfectly to the West Coast and brought all that New York swagger with them. Cardinals. This name sprang from one sports writer's fashion commentary. He saw their bright red uniforms and said, "What a lovely shade of cardinal red." That random style compliment became one of baseball's most iconic brands almost instantly. You see, most greatness starts with the most unexpected compliment about uniform colors. Well, finally, the nation's team. Nationals. When you're the nation's capital, subtle really isn't an option for your team name. When the Expos moved from Montreal in 2005, Washington needed a name that represented the capital without any confusion. Nationals had been used in D.C. before, so it honored the past while claiming the present moment. Some cities demand names as commanding as their role on the world stage. 30 teams, 30 stories. Each one reveals something fascinating about America itself. From state birds to headline-friendly nicknames, guardian statues to trolley-dodging, these names are living history we witness every game. Next time someone asks about a team name, you've got stories that'll blow your mind and win you baseball street cred. Which origin story surprised you the most? Drop it in the comments. Also, don't forget to smash that subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next video.